Back to the Dean Obeidallah show. Right now, joining us for his monthly chat, it's our friend Andy Borowitz, writer, comedian, New York Times bestselling author, co-creator of the show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and of course the wildly popular Borowitz Report on Substack. Check it out, borowitzreport.com. Hello, Andy. How are you?
I'm very good, Dean. We're recording this, of course, Thursday afternoon, and I'm pretty psyched about all this news coming out of the UK. So we got to get right into that.
We do. I'm glad that you put it that way. By the way, so the brother of a king being arrested, as we're seeing with Prince Andrew, or the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, what do you think? I mean, what's your reaction here?
Well, I have so many reactions. First of all, I really listen and watch the BBC a lot because it's so much better than CNN. They don't have Scott Jennings, for one thing, so it's a big improvement. And I love the British perspective on this because they had a historian on.
Ah,
And they said, and she said, well, people are calling this unprecedented, and it really isn't because in the 1400s, and it's like, wait a minute, that's going back away. Like in the United States, we don't look at history through that like long lens. But the one thing that I've been hearing the most about this today, in terms of the historical perspective, is the last real high-ranking royal to get arrested was in the 1640s. It was
of
it was
course.
actually King Charles the First, and that was the whole time when Cromwell and the Puritans came in and he was executed, and the Puritans were such a drag that they didn't last long because by 1660. Charles II, his son, was king. So that's why that's the restoration. Little history lesson for you, Dean. I bet you didn't think you were going to get that today.
Well, I have some history for you. The closest analogy to what happened in the UK in America is when Billy Carter got in trouble. And Jimmy Carter's brother. That's it.
Well,
That's
no, I mean Billy Carter, and also you're forgetting Neil Bush.
Oh
Neil
yeah,
Bush
Neil, but
was
Billy
famous,
Carter's
like,
more comedic.
and there was also, but no one's funnier than Billy Carter. But also there was Don Nixon. I mean, in
Don
general,
Nixon, that's a real guy. I didn't know that.
Roger Clinton, remember him?
Oh yeah, Roger Clinton, sure.
I mean, in general, siblings of heads of state are a problem. And then, in the UK, they've got like Harry, who's like out making, Netflix shows and stuff in Montecito. It's a problem. And Queen Elizabeth also had to deal with Margaret, who was like hanging out with Mick Jagger and Mystique. I don't know if you watched The Crown,
Of course, I have to.
but yeah, Margaret would have actually been such a rockin' queen had she only gotten a chance. That was the real tragedy of her life. But anyway, that's not
Wait a
what
sec.
people.
Let's stop for a second here. Do you
Okay.
think people watch this idea in America that we really like royalty? And I don't know if that's true. We like the Kardashians too. I mean, we just like car wrecks, right? So if you give us The Crown in a serialized version where it feels like a reality show or just a compelling drama, I mean, we love Game of Thrones, but it's not like we want the dragons here. So I mean, I wonder in America, do you think we really want a monarch that somehow, because they say that, oh, the Kennedys are America's monarchy and that kind of stuff, and that we have some deep down love for it because America at one point was part of the UK. I'm not sure that's true.
I mean, it's hard to say. I think we have mixed feelings, but I got to say that also applies to the British people. I think they have mixed feelings. Like they like the pomp and ceremony. Everybody digs the royal weddings, but then
Right.
we also like the royal crack-ups. We like when, Fergie is a mess and all the Crown, you're right. It was a big soap opera and we really dig that too. So it's like most things we have, we're conflicted, I've got to say. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we're really craving a monarchy here. Like Trump
Right.
is like coming as close to giving us a taste of that as possible. This has been by the way, let's just be clear. This is a very bad development for Donald Trump. There's no
It
question.
is. We're gonna get, but what I have to ask, since you created the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you are a Prince expert. So, was this ever a storyline in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Was there any the brother of the prince, which was Will Smith, I assume, right? Uh,
Right.
nothing, anything
No,
cool?
no,
Any
no, no.
idea for a new show like the Real Princes of Windsor or some kind of spin-off series? I mean, you can
Yeah,
create
no,
something.
I
You're a
mean,
genius.
he was his royal freshness, as he referred to himself on the show. And
Right.
he did have a British butler on the show.
Yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah, Joseph Marcel sort of lent a kind of a masterpiece theater veneer to the show every now and then. He was actually little known fact, and this is not what I thought we would talk about today, but Joseph Marcel, who played Geoffrey the Butler on Fresh Prince, was a veteran of the Royal Shakespeare Company. He
Wow.
was he was in England. I brought him over, and suddenly he was on an American sitcom. And I got to tell you, it was probably the best gig he'd ever had. He had the time of his life. He really is a fabulous, wonderful guy.
And he's also in the Epstein file, ironically. Everything comes together. So look, when you touched on, so we'll be serious now. We'll put on our
Okay.
serious caps here.
Okay.
That there
Serious.
is no doubt that the prosecution of the prince puts pressure on Pam Bondi, which is in full cover-up mode. I mean, we've never seen a cover-up this in our face before. You literally have the victims at Congress standing behind Pam Bondi, demanding justice, willing to name names. They have statements of who abused them, and they won't open any investigation anyway. I mean, this is textbook cover-up. So now you have this. You also have in France, they appointed a magistrate to investigate there. You've got in Poland, Norway, other countries. So what do you think? I mean, is there a point where the pressure gets too great on DOJ, or do we have to look to the states like New York or Florida, which is useless Florida, but if the statute of limitations hasn't run to prosecute the powerful men involved in some of this stuff?
Well, I mean, Pam Bondi better watch it because, I mean, I pointed this out this week, and I know a lot of other people did as well, that we have sent an U.S. Attorney General to prison. John Mitchell covered up Watergate. He perjured himself in the process. And Ted Lieu, in the hearings last week, really kind of, put it to Pam Bondi that she might be falling into the same trap, that she had to be careful to be truthful under oath because she said a statement that is demonstrably untrue, which
Right.
is that there is no evidence, no evidence that Donald Trump committed crimes. And actually, I have not had the patience to go through the Epstein files. I prefer to have smarter people do it for me. And like Julie K. Brown, who broke the story in the Miami Herald years
Right.
ago, kind of got this whole party started, if you want to call it that. And a very smart guy on Substack named Roger Sollenberg. I don't know if you've been following his stuff, but what they've unearthed is that there are a lot of credible allegations against Donald Trump that he raped children. I'm just going to say
Yeah.
what they're saying. It's like there are credible allegations. The FBI interviewed some of his accusers, and then mysteriously, recently, some of those investigations and the transcripts, the documents related to them, have vanished from the DOJ website. So that is a little bit suspicious. They talked to one of his accusers, interestingly enough, the FBI did, the day before Epstein committed suicide. Now
Air quotes.
that timing seems rather suspicious to me. I mean, I mean, Dean, I don't know if you watch a lot of Law and Order, but doesn't that seem like a very strange collision of events?
I lived law and order. I was a lawyer. I practiced law. I was a municipal prosecutor in South Hackensack, New Jersey, every other week because a partner of my firm was, he made me go do it. So I was there. I want to go back to what Representative Ted Lieu from California said yesterday. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files thousands and thousands of times. In those files, there are highly disturbing allegation of Donald Trump raping children and threatening to kill children. That's a member of Congress after looking at the files unredacted, going out yesterday in Congress, out at the podium, saying that allegations of Trump raped children and threatened to kill children.
Yeah.
And this would demand, with a real DOJ, an investigation. But we're having a cover up. This is unbelievable cover up in our face.
Well, it does remind me a little bit of Watergate. I mean, it's a little bit more brazen, I suppose. But during Watergate, Nixon kept on saying in speech after speech, we've got to move past Watergate. The American
Right.
people are tired of Watergate. And nothing could have been further from the truth. It was the best television show ever. People were glued to it. And the same applies to the Epstein files. Donald Trump is always saying, like, no one cares. It's a boring story. And it's like, dude, you are so wrong. This is like binge watching. And people really are kind of, we kind of have a problem with pedophilia. That's sort of a
Certainly.
red line for a lot of people. So,
By the way, going back to John Mitchell for a second, the difference between Pam Bondi and John Mitchell is that Richard Nixon would not pardon John Mitchell.
right.
Donald Trump will pardon Pam Bondi and everyone involved. A little nostalgic thing here. That might not be the right word. Historical fact.
Throwback.
John Mitchell and G. Gordon Liddy, who both went to jail in Watergate, both went to Fordham Law School where I went. So we're
Oh,
very proud.
wow.
Yes, the Fordham Law was very involved in many scandals in New York and on the national level.
That's,
And
I hope you indicate that on your LinkedIn because
I'm going to
that's
put that the
that's
same
very
law school as
impressive.
John Mitchell and G. Gordon Liddy. And I got to tell you, between Mitchell and G. Gordon Liddy, G. Gordon Liddy was a lot more fun. I read his autobiography. He was a character. Like
He was.
he was a blue collar guy, character and a half. And some of the other guys, there are some Fordham or Jesuit law school guys. John Dean went to Georgetown Law, so it's all this Jesuit law school stuff. I don't know what they taught us there. I'm chatting with our friend Andy Borowitz. So, Andy, what about the chances now? Epstein's in the news everywhere. It's headlines everywhere right now. There's a point where Trump's not going to want this anymore. So when does he begin bombing Iran? Does he wait till Saturday? Does he wait till Sunday? Does it have to be more than a one-off bombing to really drive the prince being arrested off the front page of the news?
Well, here's what's kind of interesting. And again, I have to sort of timestamp this that we're talking about this on Thursday afternoon and events move very quickly. So who knows where we'll be. But and some more bad news for Trump came out of the UK today. I don't know if you followed this, that the UK is not going to let Trump and the US use their air bases for any attack on Iran. Did you see that? They're
Oh, I
not.
didn't know. I
Yeah.
mean, we have a massive
So like,
flotilla on its way, but
yeah, so like we're obsessed about the Andrew Mountbatten story for good reason. But that other story, I thought that was very interesting. So it's a little bit of like Keir Starmer sort of saying, "Hey, wait a minute, maybe it's time for me to kind of stand up to Trump a little bit." His Keir Starmer has his own popularity problems. But what I think we're seeing is, Trump will use all the levers at his control. He has Pam Bondi as like his little marionette, but his popularity right now is so low. It's like at 36%. And that's when things started getting really problematic for Nixon as well. When Nixon started losing his popularity, that's when his like very, very loyal stooges started peeling off because people sort of have this, theory that like all these people like Howard Baker like stood up to Nixon and there were all these like independent Republicans. And actually, Howard Baker was pretty loyal to Nixon. That whole thing about what did the president know and when did he know it? He didn't say that as kind of a inquisitor. He said that as kind of an exculpatory device. It's like, well, maybe he didn't know, and
right,
it was
right.
only ultimately when Nixon became pretty grievously unpopular that they started peeling off. But I think you've got to look at what happened in the UK today and really sort of compare and contrast. And one thing I've got to say about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as we now
Mhm.
call him, is he made a huge mistake early on. He should have moved to Washington because if you're a pedophile, Washington is a sanctuary city. And he'd be like, he has somebody, Pam Bondi works full time protecting people just like Andrew Windsor. So huge fail on his part. I know he's not the smartest tool in the shed, and maybe that was a problem, but now it's too late. If he goes to Washington, he's going to have to testify in front of Congress. So the ship has sailed on that.
It's true. It's also interesting now that we're seeing the reason that the charges are going to, that in this case against Prince Andrew, have nothing to do with the women
Yeah.
or with Virginia Giuffre or nothing. It has to do with apparently the allegations. He got some essentially confidential information from the government about trade issues, and he gave it to Epstein to help Epstein's business interests. And that goes back to, I spoke to Lisa Phillips, one of the survivors. She's been on the
Hmm.
show a few times. That with Trump, that she mentioned the bigger point. This has nothing to do with Trump or anything. She said, this was an international blackmail ring. She said Jeffrey
Hmm.
Epstein built an international blackmail ring, and he told me directly, him and Ghislaine are building something big here, and that's what they meant. That's why they videotaped everything. They were
Right.
shaking people down. So, I mean, we don't know if Prince Andrew, who was the prince at the time, gave it quid pro quo for more children to have sex with, or it really was the blackmail going on. And that's why Epstein was able to make money worldwide and gather just an untold amount of money until his death. And you're like, where was this guy making money from? The blackmail ring.
Well, it certainly seems like that's the case with Les Wexner. We haven't really heard the end of that story just yet, but it seems clear that he had something on him. You've got such wonderful people in there as Leon Black. I mean, the whole thing is such a kind of teeming septic tank. It's very hard to like, get to the bottom of it all. There's just so much there. But yeah, the financial stuff is big. The other guy in the UK who's really gone down so far is Peter Mandelson. who
Mhm.
was the UK ambassador to the US, who hugely a huge mistake on Keir Starmer's part, and that almost brought down Keir Starmer's premiership. I mean, he's sort of hanging by a thread right now because it was a huge mistake to name Peter Mandelson. But Mandelson also, like the Prince, was sending
Mhm.
information, confidential government financial information to Epstein. So yeah, it's an amazing financial story in addition to a really gross, um, sexual assault story, child abuse story. So more to come, I guess.
I don't know if Keir Starmer's done anything that's been popular. He's kind
No,
of remarkable. Like it's just he came in, and I remember being, oh, good, a labor leader, a Labor Party prime minister. And then I don't even know what he does, but you read about it, like this is no one likes anything you're doing. Nobody in either side. He's kind of a remarkable guy. We'll say that plays out. So let's shift gears and check my friend Andy Borowitz. One thing, by the way, I like this. See, here's the approach, Andy. Even if you're paying high prices, we know we are. It's just deny it's due to Trump's tariffs. And that's what Kevin Hassett, the White House economic advisor this week, he got upset. The New York Federal Reserve here in New York wrote a report that the tariffs that Trump imposed, which are a tax, are being paid by consumers and businesses. I'm not sure who else would be paying them, but that's who's paying it. So Kevin Hassett got very upset and said, this is the worst paper I've ever seen in the history of the Federal Reserve System. The worst, he said. And that they are being, and that he talked about there should be some kind of punishment for them putting out a report. I mean, look, I don't need the Federal Reserve to write a report. I went to Trader Joe's and this olive oil I like had went up in price. And I said to the cashier, do you know why this is up like $2? Because on a percentage basis, that was a big jump. And they said they told it was the tariffs because it was imported from Italy. I'm like, ah. And he said a lot of things because the tariffs were impacted at the store because Trader Joe's is great, known for lower prices. I don't need this report. But now we have Hassett saying, don't believe it. You're not really paying higher prices.
well, he's not just saying don't believe it. He's saying if you say that you're paying higher prices, you must be disciplined. So I really want to know how that works. Are they going to get like ICE to march down to the Federal Reserve and like start shooting randomly at Federal Reserve governors who like say interest rates need to go in one direction or another? I mean, it's the idea that they're now going to discipline people for reporting reality. And I mean, I guess, that's why they have Barry Weiss at CBS, like they want to make sure that reality is really kept under wraps. Zero tolerance for reality. But that's a new, I've never seen the Federal Reserve um, being such, I think of like the Federal Reserve people as being possibly the most boring people in the world. Like when you listen to like Alan Greenspan testifying, like nothing was a bigger snooze than that. And they're being treated like they're gangstas or something. It's just an amazing development. And maybe it's kind of cool for them. Like maybe they go home and they like brag to their spouses, like I might be going to jail because of that thing I said about, you know, quantitative easing. I don't know.
It's kind of like we're living the Death of Stalin movie in real
We
life.
are, which is
This
a
is
good movie. I
it's a
don't know that
great
I want to
movie.
live it, but it is.
This is
I
like
mean,
this.
the thing about everything they're doing, and it's maybe one of the only saving graces here, they are very evil, but they are not evil geniuses. They are evil morons, and they are highly incompetent. And my wife and I were talking about this today. I was talking about the Epstein files, of course, that's all we talk about. And she said, why did they leave all this stuff in to begin with? Like, why did they leave all this stuff about like Trump raping children and threatening to kill children? I mean, that if you're hiring like dozens of people to redact, wouldn't those things be the first? Wouldn't you do like a text search for like child rape, kill, things like that, and they immediately redact that? But no, they left all that in. They also published all this child porn, all these naked pictures of children. And I do think some of it, I mean, I think there's probably some of it is driven by very malign objectives. But I think some of it is just that they're really bad at what they do. They're just really highly incompetent people.
It's hard to determine is it malice or just incompetence in certain ways. One
Can
of
be
the things,
both. Can be
right?
both.
The hearing last week with Pam Bondi was Thomas Massey, the only good Republican left in Congress now, said, "Here's a letter that the lawyers for the survivors sent to you, saying." Don't release these names. Make sure you cross them out. And what do? They actually released that letter. Everyone's name in it, but they blocked out one survivor's name and they don't even know why. So it's not like, so his point was it wasn't inadvertent. Someone in DOJ saw this letter, says, oh, okay, let's put it in there. But this one person, let's block them out. Meanwhile, many other victims for the first time were revealed to the public. Now there's so many documents that it's not like we're all learning it. Oh my God, everyone's knowing the same name that's been revealed. But the point was that this was, and Thomas Massey showed the letter, said, you put this, the letter says don't do it. And you not only put their names, you put the letter telling you don't put their names, put the names in it. And you're like, I don't know if that was malicious or incompetence. I don't know.
Well, it reminds me, that story reminds me a little bit of George H.W. Bush when he was running for president. I think it was the second time when he was running against Bill Clinton. They were really dealing with a guy who was great at projecting empathy in Bill Clinton because Bill Clinton, was all, I feel your pain and all that stuff. Right. And so they wanted to underline in a speech that George H.W. Bush was giving that he cared. So they highlighted in the teleprompter before the line that was supposed to show empathy, they had the stage direction, message, I care. And of course, George H.W. Bush dutifully read it out loud. It's on C-SPAN archive. I think it's on YouTube. You can see it. It's wonderful. He just says, so message, I care. And he just does it. So yeah, if you put in something in the Epstein files that says, don't publish this letter or don't publish this guy's name, they will probably do it. Chances are. You have to, I guess, kind of use reverse psychology or something.
You do. I'm waiting for JD Vance just to read Pause for Laughs, because he did a joke today. They got no laughs whatsoever.
What was the joke? What was the joke?
It wasn't, and I can't even do it. It's not a joke. In his mind, it was a joke. He's trying to make fun of AOC. So he said the Board of Peace meeting, which I don't even know the whole cosplaying administration we have. There's this Board of Peace. These random leaders from some third world nations are there. And JD.
Oh, he was like trying to warm up the Board of Peace?
He was like the warm-up act, and he tried to do a joke about AOC, and he claimed she stared into the camera for 20 seconds silently and this kind of stuff. And his joke was like, I don't know, I feel like I should just get up here and stare for 20 seconds at the camera, and then the people in the back, meaning the media, they'll write good things about me. And he's smiling, you hear nothing. Nothing. Like, and people are like, she didn't stare at the camera for 20 seconds. It's remarkable how the media narratives go like, she's an idiot. She's very bright. I don't know it doesn't matter. They're always going to dissect what she says in ways consistent with their agenda, not with reality. So I don't even pay attention to it. But that was it. But it's so great. I was like, remember Jeb Bush, please clap?
Yeah, please clap. Well, one thing, and this is very intentional. This is not like the incompetence in the Epstein files redaction process. Donald Trump sees himself, rightfully so, as a star. He's the star of his show. He was the star of The Apprentice. Right. He's always been in his mind. Everything's been about Trump. And so he doesn't want to surround himself with people who have even a shred of charisma. So instead he has people like Scott Bessent, J.D. Vance, and Howard Lutnick, who are human repellents. And he has these people, have you ever seen Scott Bessent on television?
Sure.
I mean, that is, it's just like watching very gray paint dry. He absolutely has no charisma. We know about J.D. And then you have Howard Lutnick, he just exudes awfulness in a way that almost seems like a superpower.
It's remarkable. I'm talking with a friend, Andy Borowitz. All right, we have time for one last topic. Do you want to talk about Colbert or your article with Christy Noam?
Colbert? Let's talk about Colbert.
Okay, let's talk about Colbert because we both allegedly have worked in the comedy field.
Not today,
not today
because we've been talking about things like rape, but in general, we tend to be kind of lighthearted.
Right. So see, it's kind of interesting how this all played out. It was Monday night. We learned the FCC forced Colbert not to air an interview with Telerico. And then on the further analysis, it was really the CBS lawyers obeying in advance because the FCC did a guidance in January going, we're going to apply the same rules to you as we do to news and all this kind of, we're not going to give you the exemption anymore at equal time. So if you're The View or a late night show, we're going to make you do this. So but it exploded. It doesn't matter what the facts are anymore. It ended up really being a joint effort by the Trump regime, because they don't want Democrats on TV on these network shows that are really popular anymore alone. And the lawyers at CBS were only too happy to do what the Trump regime wanted. So it really was a combination of the two. It's not one or the other. So what was your take of this?
Well, I mean, you have the Ellisons, the very regrettable Ellisons who, poor David Ellison, who is like a doppelganger of Eric Trump. And I mean, that's
Oh,
just one of the worst things for anyone to have to contend with. So that it's like so unsurprising for them because this is their playbook. They want to take over Warner Brothers Discovery, and so they're
mhm.
just sucking up to Trump and doing whatever he wants. That part wasn't surprising. What I find endlessly entertaining, and there's a pattern here, is there's so much that Trump doesn't understand about media in the 21st century. For a guy who's very good at it, like he's very good at social media, he's very good at grabbing everyone's attention and switching up the news cycle, but he still, for some reason, thinks that late night TV is where it's at. It's
Right.
like no one is watching late night TV. And so what did he do here? This is a prime example of the Streisand effect, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is that if you want to draw attention to something, you say it's banned, you can't see it. So, like, it works with books, it works with movies. If you declare something forbidden, a forbidden fruit, everybody wants it. It's just human nature.
Mhm.
We're curious and we don't like to be denied things. So, this worked with Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel is a very talented guy. I've got to say, I really never watched the Jimmy Kimmel show very much because I don't watch any late night shows. I mean,
Right.
like most Americans, I kind of get my content elsewhere. But once Jimmy Kimmel got pulled off the air, I became an avid fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I still don't watch him on the late night show because I don't watch in that time frame, but I watch his stuff on YouTube. And that's the point, which is that everybody flocked to YouTube. Millions of people watched the Talrico interview. Probably no, I mean, usually when you interview a politician, and you do it all day, Dean, sometimes it's a struggle to get people to be interested in that because it's
Sure.
like, oh, yet another member of Congress, yet another candidate. But Talrico is now a star. Like he's raised millions of dollars. So it's a prime example of the Streisand effect. And once again, like Donald Trump, his understanding of certain aspects of our society and culture is very much stuck in the 1980s. He still thinks the most influential things in the world are like 60 Minutes and, the late night comedy shows.
Right.
He doesn't realize that like kids are getting stuff from TikTok. I mean, it's confusing because like when he ran for president this last time, he did do a lot of podcasts. So somebody was giving him good advice about that. But I think when it comes down to him, I really think his basic instincts are still very much stuck in the late 70s, early 80s. Like, what's on Johnny Carson tonight? I think that's the way he thinks.
I think he does believe they create the narrative or they're the influencers of the day when they're not at all anymore. In fact, I
Yeah.
would think the late night hosts more are driven by what's going on social media than the other way around. I don't think younger people are watching Jimmy Kimmel and then doing something on YouTube or on TikTok to reflect it. It's the other way around. And then they do bits like Jimmy Fallon does bits inspired by TikTok and
And
Instagram.
they're creating content on network TV that they hope will be, viral.
Exactly. Things
So
have
it's like,
changed.
yeah, so it's really like Trump doesn't understand the direction of travel here at all, and it's kind of fascinating. But look, it was good news for Talrico. Once again, it's good news for Colbert. Colbert, I don't know what his next move is when the show is canceled, but it's going to be huge. I mean, I'm sure he'll do something digital. And look, you and I are both on Substack, so we know
Mhm.
it's like I would much rather be on Substack right now than working for any legacy media company. It's just a much, much better deal. It's the audience is bigger, you have more control, you have less censorship. I mean, so it's going to be great for Colbert. I mean, I think that whatever he does, and he's like one of these kind of high energy guys who can't stop. I mean, I'm sure he'll do something fantastic. So it's a happy ending. Every now and then our totalitarian regime creates something good, and in this case, I think the liberation of Colbert is going to be really cool to watch.
And I should tell you now, the new show is going to be Colbert and Obeidallah in the mornings, right here on SiriusXM now. Well, Andy, I want to thank you, my friend. It's great chatting with you. And where do you want people to follow you? Is it the Borowitz Report.com?
Yeah,
Sign up for your Substack?
Yeah, just go to borowitzreport.com and I do about 5 free stories every week, so you don't have to pay a cent. On the weekends, there is a charge for some of the premium content, but a lot of people are going for that because I have great interviews with people and longer pieces, but free, paid, whatever you want, just sign on and check it out.
A cover and 2 drink minimum. That's what Andy charges.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Andy. Thanks so much for being on. It's great seeing you, my friend. See you
Thanks,
soon.
Dean. Be well.